Phoenix, an arcade game initially released by Taito in 1980, is a pretty cool game where you face off against an army of space birds. But unfortunately, due to its relative lack of home console ports aside from one on the Atari 2600, it's one of the many Golden Age arcade games that couldn't really maintain its popularity through that medium. Phoenix is also notable for being one of the first video games to feature a boss fight. I think this game is really underrated. It probably has the best presentation and lambuxuacious elements of any arcade game at the time. It just has a really haunting vibe. But all of this is besides the point. What we're really here to talk about is the mystery of the game's developer. Despite the game being distributed by Taito in its home country, Taito, like most arcade game distributors at the time, didn't actually create their games in-house. However, it's unknown exactly what company created Phoenix, or even if they made any other video games. I've seen rumors that this company is called TPN, and I've seen rumors that this company is called Hirauka. And through trying to dig deeper for any information on any companies with these names, I ended up empty-handed. I have searched and searched, and I can't find anything on the internet about them other than the rumors that they made Phoenix. Maybe sources for this information exist outside of the internet, but I wonder if they're even reliable in the first place. The strangest part is the fact that we've been given two names. Maybe this company went by two names, or one was part of the other. But as far as I've been able to look, I've not been able to find anything. I would be perfectly happy with looking like an idiot here, as I'm genuinely struggling to find further information with what we've been given. So if anyone watching this knows anything and actually has reliable sources, please let me know. Now I want to get into some viewer suggestions. First, let's talk about Uncle Pooh from 1983. Yes, this is a real game. No, I don't know how it was distributed. This game was the only game made by a company called Diatech, which sounds like some sort of weight loss company. It's a sort of maze game where you play as an old guy collecting treasures while going around farting on people. This makes for an interesting twist on video game action where you actually attack from behind, and I'm not joking when I say that. The game's premise is weird, but it's actually pretty competent. It just sucks that there's nothing out there about the people who made it. The other viewer suggestion I got that I wanted to cover was to cover a developer called Shillfeed Software, who made a shoot 'em up called Alfarne for the Sharp X68000. What piqued my interest in this subject was the name, Shillfeed. Sounds like Sylphid, the really technically impressive Mega CD game that was actually originally a PC 88 game, which some of you may know more for its PS2 sequel. Given that Alfarne is also a shoot 'em up for a PC platform, I wondered if Shillfeed Software were somehow related to Game Arts, the creators of Sylphid, but I couldn't find a correlation, and the two are probably unrelated. I can't really find a whole lot of information on this game, and honestly, this probably isn't a very unique situation for a platform as obscure as the X68000, given its nature. The name of this company just piqued my interest and a viewer suggested it. As far as I can tell, it's cataloged on a few websites, 2 YouTube videos exist of gameplay of it, and it can be downloaded on the Internet Archive. But that's it. I know a lot of you probably aren't interested in this situation, and I honestly don't know how to get you interested into it, but I certainly am. The X68K and its library are pretty interesting to me. Now I want to get into the thing that inspired me to make this video in the first place. Now, if you couldn't tell so far, in this video I obviously have a lot more to say about the games than the companies because, well, we can actually play the games, while we know literally nothing about these companies. However, here's a case where the game isn't interesting because it's good. Everything surrounding it is just strange. And it's not even an arcade game or PC game doomed to obscurity. It released on the Famicom of all things. I'm talking about the company behind the Golf 92 for the Famicom. Take that, other golf games from 1992, I guess. This is the Golf 92. As far as I can tell, this game isn't very good, but it is technically impressive for the system. Of course, I'm not the best judge of this game's quality, as I'm not very good at golf games in the first place, and this is coming from someone who actually doesn't mind golf. However, I can tell that it is quite impressive given the hardware. Look at these graphics, though I will say the music is pretty bad, and I'm thankfully sparing your ears. So this makes it all the stranger that this game seems to have been the only game developed and published by a company called Go1. Ever. I mean, given that it's a Famicom game, they, at the very least, were able to develop some sort of relationship with Nintendo, as it is officially licensed. I couldn't find anything on this. It's so weird. Now let's get into a game that, despite being made by a mysterious company, really doesn't have any ominous undertones to it. That being the 1993 arcade game Magical Cat Adventure. Now, what does this remind you of? Now, look at that poster and really tell me what this reminds you of. Ignore the watermark, the logo emblem at the top with the ring and red ribbon, the character whose design is a mix of classic rubber hose style cartoon characters mixed with a Japanese edge who clearly has a cool attitude, striking a pose that emphasizes his raised up finger. Gosh, I just can't put my finger on what they possibly could have been taking inspiration from. It's just so original. Okay, jokes aside, this might actually be one of the very first Japanese games, of a very small bunch of course, to be a response to Sonic the Hedgehog. As such, this game has obviously gained a cult following from certain audiences. I actually found out about it from SNES Drunk's review of the game. The strangest thing about this game, besides what we're going to get into, is the fact that it released in arcades. It's very much not an arcade style game, so I have no idea why it wasn't released on the Super Famicom or something. And honestly, if I didn't tell you it was an arcade game already, you'd probably think that this game was a Super Nintendo game or something. Anyways, it was developed and distributed by a company called WinTechno. You want to know everything we know about them? They were based in Japan, and they made this game. That's it. Once again, the strange level of technical competence on display here makes me feel like this company was made up of employees from another company. It has a very Konami vibe to it, but I can't quite put my finger on why. WinTechno may have very well have been another company like Natsume or Treasure made up by ex-Konami devs, but who knows. But this game doesn't even have credits. Not only that, the default score entries don't even have any sort of actual initials, which wouldn't really help, but still. It's so strange that this company that no one has come out to say that they worked for not only made a fairly competent game out of the blue, but was also supposedly somehow able to distribute it. I don't even know how this game even got its online cult following in the first place. We have no leads on who could have possibly have worked at WinTechno, but it's very clear to me that everyone working at the company had some sort of prior industry connections. It's likely that they were going to release other games, but this game bombing likely caused them to go bankrupt and caused its employees to probably go back to where they were. It's really interesting. Now, throughout this video, I've been covering companies who have only made one game. But I do want to honorarily cover a company that is not obscure in the slightest, yet is still quite mysterious. A company that is quite infamous amongst hardcore fans of the NES and Famicom. I'm of course talking about shadow developer Micronics. For those of you who don't know what a shadow developer is, it's something that has existed since pretty much the beginning of video games. These are developers who don't take credit for games they work on and mostly exist just to get people into the industry and train them so they can go on to do bigger things. The most famous of these ghost developers is Tosei, a company that's mysterious but also not. It's just a place where programmers and designers go to get their start in the industry and has existed since the early 1980s, with one of the first games they worked on being SNK's Vanguard. Micronics is the more infamous shadow developer though, known for creating some of the worst ports and games on the NES and Famicom, most notably Ghosts and Goblins. They're the complete opposite of a company like HAL Laboratory, as they created some of the most technically incompetent video games ever created. There are two main questions people have about Micronics, one that has maybe already been answered, and one that still hasn't. Why their games were so awful, and what happened to them. I'll just repeat what I said in another older video to answer the first question. Apparently the founder of the company, Kazuyo Yagi, was just a bright-eyed college student who wanted to break into the industry with original games, but was stuck making ports, and as such, stopped caring about bugs and stuff. However, take this with a grain of salt, as it comes from a Giant Bomb article referencing a statement made by a 2chan user. Also, I mean, if this guy was so passionate about making video games, could he at least muster up some passion for making these ports? As for the answer to the other question, they slowly faded away as the NES lost prominence, but they still developed games for other systems. It's rumored that they became the company Chaos in 1993. The last game they seemingly developed was Pocket King for the Game Boy for Namco in 2000. Given that they're, well, a shadow developer, it could be likely that after that release, they became better at hiding their tracks. Who knows? They may be lurking where you least expect. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have anything to add to this conversation, go ahead and do so in the comments below. Thank you to my patrons and thank you for watching.